Welcome back to the Exploit System Guide. In this episode, I will actually show you how you can modify a script that you can find in the hack shop in order to make a universal hacking tool which will get you into a lot more places than you can normally reach by just using the hack shop. So let's go into the hack shop and get a script that we can use for this. The reason I'm doing it like this is because there is already a script that you can find in the hack shop that is fairly close to what we are going to make. So what you're looking for is a tool that says remote use, like this, remote use, and it should also say get access to shell. So these are local use, we can't use these. And here it is. So get access to shell, remote use. Let's see where that is. Gets access to shell, remote use, gives a non-root user. It's an HTTP, so it's like a shell web, and then it requires existing active connection in the machine and a minimum of 2 users registered in the computer. This is probably going to work on a lot of HTTP servers, so this is essentially a shell web. And in order to get the existing active connection in machine, you can just connect a browser to the website, since it's an HTTP server. So this exploit will probably work on pretty much all HTTP servers if they are running the correct version, of course. So let's grab this and call it HTTP shell, maybe, like that. But what we will be doing with it is we will not use it as a shell web. Instead, we will edit it with the code editor. So we open the code editor and go to the shell or script. And what we want to do here is, I don't think I will have enough time to go through all the code and explain everything, but in the beginning here, we can see that I've explained this previously as well, but params is the commands that you are typing in after the command. So if we were to use HTTP shell and then type something like blue here, then blue is params 0, and if params 0 equals to -h, for example, we could actually show that off. No, we can't, because I haven't. You need to build the code and save it as a binary executable file before we can run it. If I just do this, then it will say it's not a binary file yet. No matter. The first word you write there will be params 0, the second one will be params 1, and so on, and then you can see like the len is how many there are. No, but I don't think I will be going through all this. So we want to change the usage so we remember how to use this exploit. So the edit we will make, and if you downloaded something like this from the hack shop, it should look almost identical to this that I have here. So what you do is, or maybe like almost, these things will be different, and I think like that's the only difference. Everything else should be exactly the same, I think. So in here we will write, this is just like the help documentation, so if you run it incorrectly it will tell you how to use it. So here after the port, like it will say usage exploit, like the name of the exploit, that is whatever we name it. So if we name it like HTTP shell, then that is what you will write here. Then you will type in the IP address that you want to hack and the port, right? And then we want to add the memory, and I'll explain that later. as well as a unsecure value. We can call that value, like this. So, and these are the 4 different params or parameters that we will be putting into the script when we run it. And then we also have to change the code slightly to be able to put that into the code. So down here you have dump libs, and then under below there is overflow. In between here, it's not really that important, but it might be easier to see. So you can probably put it wherever you like, almost, but let's put it here. You can't put it below. You will have to put it above this one. But let's just put it in between these. So here we will put memory, and that will be params 2. And params 2, since params 0 is the first parameter, the first thing you type, then params 1 is the second thing, and params 2 is the third thing. So it might be a bit confusing if you're not used to scripting. Then we have value. I think I called it that, right? Value, yes. And value is param 3, like this. So this is the edit you need to make, and then in here we will remove the memory value that was already put there and put our own memory value, which is now memory. So this is like a variable that is saving what we type into the terminal, and then the overflow will use whatever we typed in. So this is making the tool universal. It is not just using a specified memory and value every time. We can put in whichever memory and value we want into this tool and use it to hack any kind of server. It will not only work on HTTP servers, it will work on SQL servers, SSH servers, like everything. Then we put value here, and that way we are now putting in the information into the script. And that's pretty much it. So once we've done this, we'll just save it. I'm going to save it as shell because that's what it gives, as you can see down here. If it gets a shell, then it starts a terminal, otherwise it will give you an error. So we'll name this shell and save it. And now we have a universal exploit. In order to start using this exploit, we can just see if it works. So shell, now it tells us it needs IP address, port, memory, and value. And we will need now to find memory and values, right? So where do we get those? That's where the other hacking tool that I have not mentioned very much from the hack shop comes in, the scanlib. So you will need to grab the scanlib. Let's buy that. In order for either of these things to work, in order for shell to work, in order for scanlib to work, you will, as I mentioned in every episode so far regarding the exploit system, you need to have a meta exploit in the lib folder. So make sure you've done that step. Okay, next up, I've mentioned that in my previous videos more in depth. So what we will do is we will now need to find libraries that we can scan. So let's see, here we go, scanlib, and then it will tell you that it wants a path to a library file. We could, just for testing it out, scan some of the libraries we already have on our computer. So let's see here. We have all of these are libraries. So if you, for example, did lib-init.so, then it will scan this library and show us the memory dumps and then weaknesses in those memory dumps. I will show you how that works. So like this, and then it shows us these memory addresses, and then we can pick one of them just by selecting which numbers. Let's take the first one, and this will give us information about what weaknesses that are available inside of the init.so. So we will not know what kind of vulnerability it will return, like if it will return a shell or a computer or a file. I guess I'll get more in depth with that as well later, but what it will tell us is it will tell us what requirements the vulnerability has in order to run. So this one, for example, the bold text is the value. So as you can see here, this is the memory value that I talked about, and this is the unsecure values, all of these. And then you have requirements. So we need an active connection maybe, or we need a kernel module library that is version 1.0.0. So you can like see here if there are any that you think will work on the server that you're trying to hack. Now, the shell exploit that we just made, based on a shell exploit from the hack shop, will need to use libraries that are accessible through ports. So since we are hacking computers, like we want to get into computers on other networks, for example, then we will need to have library weaknesses for those particular ports. And I guess that is the second part of, or like a huge part of the hacking, essentially, is how do we get those? And a smart trick, and perhaps one of the only ways of doing that, is to go into the shop. So now you have to pay attention again. In the shop, you can get the SSH server, HTTP server, and FTP server. When you run these servers, a library file is created on the server you run them in here. So if we run the SSH server, then a lib ssh.so will be created in the lib folder. However, you need to be careful with this, because if you start these servers on your own computer, then other players will have a much easier time hacking you. They can actually hack you anyways, but it's much easier to hack somebody if they have opened a port on their computer. So what we want to do is we want to rent a server, go into that server. Let's see here. This is a longer video, maybe I should have mentioned that. So I want to like give you all the tools in this video so that you can start hacking for real in the new exploit system. So we're going over everything now, or everything you need to get started. There is a lot more depth if you start to dig in. So we go SSH. This works just like it did before. So you can use the SSH command to get into the service you rent, for example, or any other SSH server for that matter if you have the password. Like this. Now we're in the server. And we don't even need the file explorer. We just go browser. We open the shop. The reason I can open this many things is because I upgraded my RAM, and I also upgraded my CPU with the money that I got when I used the hack from the last episode. And in here I can now download the SSH server straight to my rented server. Let's download all of them. That way we will be able to since like if we when we get the HTTP server, that will give us the HTTP library, and the HTTP library gives us all the weaknesses for HTTP servers, but it will not give us weaknesses for any of the other servers. So we will have to find a library for all of the different kinds of servers that we want to hack. There are also SMTP servers and SQL servers, but those are not available here. So we will have to find those on MPC systems and then steal or download those libraries in order to get those exploits as well. We'll get to that. Maybe not in this video, but we'll get to that. So now we have all of the... we already had the SSH though, because that is how we connected to the server. So let's go HTTP, run that, and then let's run FTP like that. And now, if we go into the File Explorer, we have in the library a libSSH, libHTTP, and libFTP. So these are the libraries where we can scan for weaknesses in order to hack all these different kinds of servers. What we will do now is we will go to our own folder, I guess. Doesn't really matter where you put them. Since scanlib is in here, I guess that's going to be faster to scan. Let's just copy all of these and wait for them to finish. We already have the libSSH now, so we can start to scan. So we use the scanlib, and we do libSSH, and now we're scanning the libSSH library file. There we go. And we can just like pick one, for example, and now we have the memory address and the vulnerability values that we need to use in this command, in our shell command. So we have the memory now, and we have the value. And of course, we might not meet the requirements, or the exploit might not give us shell, because this one can only be used if it gives us shell. So we will have to try a few of these before we succeed in hacking somewhere. In the future, there will be ways of determining more of this information instead of having to guess. But in the current system, unfortunately, you have to do a lot of just guessing and trying different ones and seeing if any of them work. You can also read, of course, the requirements, but much of it is just guessing and trying. So let's finish this video maybe by showing how it works. So we will go into... I thought I saved that. Guess I didn't. We will get the mission and try it out for real. So let's save it now. Let's do a credentials needed maybe. The client wants the credentials for any user, and we don't need to be stealthy, so that's perfect because the log system is bugged at the moment. Okay, let's see here if we can get some details on here. So, like normal, like we have done before, we will start off by just nmapping the target. And as we can see, we're very lucky. The target is actually 0.3, which is the SSH server, and we just got the vulnerabilities for SSH. And the version is also perfect because it's a 1.0.0, which is exactly what the version on the... Well, actually, I don't know that. Did we know? Oh, we didn't check that. Unfortunately, this scanlib does not tell us what version of the library we just scanned. So because these are just for other library versions. Hopefully it was a 1.0.0 because otherwise it won't work. There are a bunch of stuff that you may have noticed in this new system, so yeah. But hopefully it's 1.0.0. It might work anyways, but that's more complicated, and that might also change in the future, actually. Okay, let's try this. So now we want to get in here, and we want to grab the credentials and finish this mission. So we'll do shell, and then we will do the IP, and then we'll do the port, which is 22 because it's SSH, and then we'll grab the memory, and we picked number 1, so that's this memory up here. And also you can see it down here, it says it down here. This is the memory zone we scanned, and we also need to find one of these that might work. So this one is interesting. Since the server just started from a wipe, I guess the net.so 1.0.0 is pretty likely. So let's oops, that's not what I meant to do. So this is probably a good value to try. They can look pretty weird, but you have to like copy everything except for the dot at the end. And oh yes, you can't actually use these values like this, which is really crap. I guess that will have to change in the future, because the terminal does not accept brackets when you type them in the terminal like this. Oh really? I thought that was it. Okay, I don't have no idea. That one didn't work anyways. Checking for active connection. That will not work. I don't think any of these are going to work. Let's scan another one. We'll scan number 2. Maybe we'll have more luck with that one. So all of these memory dumps can be scanned for vulnerabilities. There might be 3 registered users, so we could try that. Let's see here. So we go back here and we remove the memory address, because now we changed the memory address to this one. Like this. And then we will... Perhaps there are 3 users on here. What is going on? Maybe I made a mistake in code. Let's try this one without the brackets, because I remember that there were some problem with the brackets. What? This is strange. Why is it giving me usage? Shell, IP, port, memory, cool. Okay, this needs further investigation. Is this it? No. No, this is weird. Let's grab the HTTP shell again. I thought I did it correct. Oh, no, I didn't. I'm so sorry guys, I forgot something very important. You need to change this number from 2 to 4. So previously you were only supposed to put 2 parameters into the script. Now we're putting 4 of them. So this is blocking it. Hopefully that's the only thing we missed. Let's see here. Memory. Wow, such a detail to miss. Now let's do it again. So we go memory. Let's just copy this. Params and value. Params. Then we do params 2, params 3, and then we'll do memory. Let's spell everything correctly as well. Value, and let's save this as shell. So just replace. I won't close it this time because you never know what other mistakes were made. Okay, now yes, minimum users registered failed. So there were not 3 registered users on this on the computer we're trying to hack. What about this one? Kernel module. Yeah, it doesn't like the... That's so strange. And almost all of them has them as well. That's very unfortunate. But with something inside that works. We don't have active connection. Checking registered users, there are not 4. Well, maybe there are 4. Wait, that was what we tried. We tried the bool. Okay. How about this one then? Or maybe that one is also broken because it has brackets. I'll try. Yeah, it doesn't like that. Okay, but let's see the old memory dumps over here. Actually, let's see here. Checking for active connection. Not gonna work. Well, it could work if there are admins online. Maybe we should try that. I'm gonna go and try a different scanlib memory. I want to get something with less brackets because the brackets seems to break stuff. Let's do the third one. Okay, no brackets at least. Checking registered users equal to 3. I think that was... Did we try that? Was it 4 we tried? Let's try this. Need the memory first. Okay. So now we do shell, IP, port, memory, and then let's try this one. Yeah, minimum users required was a fail. Registered users equal to 1. This one looks promising. Let's try that. Expected shell. So this exploit worked, but unfortunately it gave us a computer object instead of a shell. If we did some more scripting, we could have solved this mission by just getting the computer object, but since we're not scripting a lot in this episode, we will be trying to get a shell instead of a computer. Well, that's good. Then we know that the registered users 1 work and that the init version is 1.0.0. So this one should also work. Hopefully this one gives us something Okay, this is bugged. Something more useful. Oops. Needed to add this. Expected shell, and we got computer again. So this one also gives computer, unfortunately. Active index user 0. Active connection. I mean, I don't think this is gonna work, but let's just try it. Can't find active connection. Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll most definitely make a episode on how to make some more tools, so we can get so like more universal tools. This is a universal shell tool, but unfortunately we never get shell, so it doesn't matter. And all the other one has like brackets and shit in it, so this one is probably not going to work. Yeah, no, it doesn't work. Okay. So I give up, and what would have happened if we have achieved shell? The terminal would have changed color, and you would have been on the other computer like you normally do, like before in the old exploit system. You would, however, just have guest access, so the system would have been pretty closed off, and I would have had to show you how to hack that system once on there. But since we're unable to get into any of these computers, I guess I will have to pick up where we left off in the next episode, because this is getting fairly long-winded. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.